What'd you make of the scrimmages this past weekend?
Pretty good Friday, Saturday. Felt like we're really competitive. Guys are mixing it really well. We're healthy, which is most important. And felt like Sunday we got to continue to get better. Wasn't terrible, but there's some stuff we can learn from Sunday. But all in all, it's a good weekend.
And how do you feel like arms are settling in at this point?
Good. Like I said, guys are healthy, which is obviously the most important part, and that's the scariest part for a pitching coach when you're building up for the spring and you're adding volume that hasn't been there, and our guys are handling it well, recovering good. So yeah, just got to keep moving it forward.
How high is just the standard for this group heading into the season?
Same as it always is, really high. I mean, I feel like this group last year we were younger. Bulk of our innings came from underclassmen, and so obviously those guys are a year older, so hopefully their expectations are just as high as everyone else's, and they can build off what they did last year, which was pretty remarkable, and just keep going with that. Yeah.
You mentioned Sunday, there's still room for improvement. What exactly are you looking for headed into game week?
I think just overall how we competed and our mentality on the mound. We have 19 pitchers, and 1 through 19 has to be at that standard of how we compete. And I felt like there was a little bit of a letdown from that competitive aspect. So I'm looking forward to rebound this Sunday in our scrimmages, and hopefully we can carry that from Friday through Saturday or through Sunday.
Do you have a firm idea of roles at this point, particularly kind of Sunday or midweek starter? Just kind of how is that sort of developing, I guess?
I mean, idea on paper, like we kind of have an idea at this point who we think is going to start, as we're still trying to build guys up. But again, you just kind of got to wait and see how they're continuing to progress and how strong they continue to, if they can handle that. And then from there, then it's about diving into video and matching up the right guys versus the right opponents and giving us our best chance to win.
We've heard a lot about Noah Scott, another guy kind of off the Iowa Western trail for you guys. I'm curious, what have you seen out of him? What drew you guys to him?
Number one, he's a winning player. Won in high school, won at Iowa Western. Real competitor. He's kind of got his feet settled in here, and he's starting to go out and pitch well, and starting to mix his pitches well. Sinker, really good sinking fastball. And he has a good arsenal to go with that sinker. We've started doing some verti fastballs, using it at the top of the zone, which helps make his changeup good. And so just, continuing to see if that's going to be a great role for him as a starter, or is it a long relief guy? I just know he's a competitor and he's a winner, and he's going to fit in.
What was attractive about Albert? About Albert specifically, and what have you seen from him and what he brings to the staff?
Number one, Albert, obviously the stuff, the verti fastball, and his ability to throw in some big situations for his previous school last year, and he was kind of their guy every time. I watched film on Big West opponents. It seemed like they were always facing Long Beach, and I kept watching the same reliever every time. I'm like, God, who is this kid? And then I kind of just kept an eye on him. Just, one of those things we do, just put a note in the back of my mind. And, when it came to looking in the transfer portal, he was there. And obviously that was one of my first phone calls on the way to the airport after we were eliminated in Omaha, and trying to bring some competitive experience, toughness to our bullpen. And that's what Albert can do. He's got a tremendous mix of, verti fastball, really good changeup, a slider, and a curveball. So, and he can throw in any role. He can finish a game. He can go middle of a game. So he's going to fit in really well for us.
When you add an established closer like Isaac, how much do you look at that as like, this is what you do, this is who you are, and why reinvent the wheel here?
Yeah, no, I mean, Yeager's obviously tons of experience coming from Washington, through a bunch of big late innings for them. Talked to one of their old coaches up there, and he's like, if there was a game where we had the lead, that's the guy who I wanted to have the baseball. And just reassuring what I saw on video, affirming, and he does have the ability to throw a lot of sliders, and it's a swing and miss pitch, and I'm excited for him. He could, again, he's another guy who could throw the 7th, the 8th, or the 9th, and it's a luxury to have as a pitching coach, to have multiple guys that can finish and get that 27th out of a game. And so you can't, it makes it tough on opposing hitting coaches when they have to like really try to figure out who the end of the game guy is. And we have guys that can match up against any type of hitter late in the game, that have the competitiveness to get that last out. And so, and they're all different. The way Albert's stuff plays is different than the way Yeager's stuff plays. Yeager's more of a sinker slider guy. Albert's a more north-south pitcher. So having the ability to do both is really important. And then you got a guy like Hutch who can, I swear he has 7 pitches and 6 different arm angles and tons of experience, and he's just a fierce competitor as well. So there's a lot of guys who we can rely on. Zach Edwards too is another guy who had a tremendous summer, and he's just continuing to grow into a pitcher full time, and that slider consistency is there for him. Obviously the big velocity is there as well.
What are the conversations like with Dax and Ethan in terms of all the noise and the hype around them? Just kind of, what are those conversations like on a day-to-day level, I guess?
To be honest, it hasn't been on my radar that this is affecting them, because they're just amazing kids. I know you guys talk to them a lot, and they're very humble. They're almost naive to the situation. That's what they do. It's who they are. They just come out and pitch, and they've been doing it their whole life. And so there's nothing that's going to change from last year to this year for those guys. And so as far as noise, I feel like it can appear to be noise, but for them, it's just another 2026 Oregon State Beaver baseball season, and they're ready to attack it and go lead the pitching staff and go do their thing.
What is it like managing when you're in the fortunate position to have what most people believe is the best pitching staff in America, and when you're entering the season preparing those two in particular for that? What is the day-to-day to that? What is it, how do you approach that? And you'd say like, oh, it's not any different, but surely as a competitor there has to be some scale of pressure, expectation, whatever. What is that?
Yeah, I feel like last year to this year, there's no different feeling. I know going into it last year, I knew what Kleiner was and I knew what Dax was, and it's the same thing this year. I know what they can do, and I mean, we've obviously added a couple pitches, a pitch to Dax and another extra pitch for Klein, just for development standpoint, and they're excited to go compete. They're competitors. They want the baseball. It's not like they want the ball more this year than last year because of this hype. No, they're the same guys. They love to win. They want the rock, and they love being on the mound, and our guys love it when they're on the mound. So I feel like, I was a little like, man, there's a lot of hype around these guys, but they're worth every word that's written about them, and it's not pressure. It's just the truth, the reality. They're really good. And so you can let it, dome you up or put pressure on you, but there's really not. You got to go make pitches, whether you're the top ranked guy or not a top ranked guy. You should still always pitch with that chip on your shoulder, that urgency, that conviction every time you go out there, no matter what. If you're so-called the best guy in America or the last guy in America, you need to go out there and pitch with that passion. And so again, for this group and these guys in particular, you're going to see that. That's just who they are. That's how they approach it and how they attack every day.
Anything else? Thanks, Rich.
Yep.